Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Illfoominati. This is WeAreDenver, a local podcast where we get to learn about cool local Denver creatives, artists, magicians in this particular case. My name is Ryan Fu. What's up? This is Steven Sampson, who joins us every time, who I feel bad about calling Steven every time because he's Sampson, really.
That's right. I am Steven Sampson. It's a little easier to keep track of me just using the name Sampson.
You're not a Steven. Anyway, this is Lady Speech, who's joining us today.
Hey!
So, Speech is a local creative who's been around the scene for a while. We were just talking beforehand that you're one of the people that I know, whenever I bring your name up, most people are like, yeah, I've heard of that person. So we're excited to have you on and talk a little bit about magic.
Yeah, baby.
So tell us a little bit, as someone who does magical work and lives in a world that maybe some people aren't too familiar with. Tell us in layman's term, who are you and what do you do?
Okay, well, I am Lady Speech, and that's my name. That's who I am, and I am a burlesque dancing, hood healing, activist, artivist, nanny, part-time counselor, event producer. Badass.
I can confirm the last part.
Dancer. I just, live my life as a divine being.
So you use words like divine and spiritual and those kinds of things.
Yes.
So what does that mean? What is magic, which is sort of the topic of our episode?
For me, magic is the essence. It's the chi. It's the power. It is the spirit. It is the soul of things. It is the current that runs through every living thing, that runs through the universe, that runs through. It's the pulse. So it's the different manifestations of this universal pulse. That's what magic means to me. That's what I mean when I say it. It's something that is not created or destroyed. It's something that we tap into or we avoid, but it's something that's there, and we can develop a relationship with it and manifest it in many different kinds of forms.
Totally. So we are going to dive deep into the magic pool.
Yeah.
But before we do, let's address for anybody who might be watching and thinking, oh, magic isn't real, magic is silly.
Your mom isn't real. No.
Yo, mama. So what would you say to someone, or would you say anything to someone who doesn't believe that magic exists?
I run across that a lot, and I laugh and let them be where they're at with that, because to me, they are a manifestation of magic. The fact that they are breathing, the fact that when they go to sleep, their organs still function without their participation, the fact that they have medicine and that they have done extraordinary things. So they themselves, if you don't believe in magic, you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to. Yeah. You are the very manifestation of it. So, I take that as a sign of, all things divine, and I'll just keep that pushing.
If I could comment on that, for the non-magic believers, to them it doesn't, very literally too, I could watch someone experience something and I could say, oh, that was like a little magical thing. If you're running around the edges there, you could see a little bit of magic. But to them, magic doesn't exist, and very literally, the way the universe works, in my opinion, it doesn't exist to them.
Yeah, the power of faith, the power of belief.
Yeah, totally. It is what you believe it is.
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of people is a really difficult leap of faith to make. Right? So tell me, Speech, what does magic do for you personally? What is the positives and the negatives, you might say, of being a magical person?
I say it's helped me to reconnect with my ancestors. Part of the way that my magic manifests is through reconnecting with the ways and the practices of my ancestors. So it helps me to find empowerment within myself. I like to think of people like witches, conjure people who who participate with the universe, with the elements, who have their own relationship with the divine and with the ethereal beings out there. It's kind of like we cut out the middleman. So God is everywhere for me. You know, the essence, goddess, ancestors, all of it is interconnected and everywhere. Every place is a place of worship. Every opportunity is an opportunity to access my power, the power of the things that are outside of me, to work in relationship with, you know, the deities, or to work in relationship with, you know, Mother Earth, or to work in relationship with the spirits that have existed before time and with me and outside of me. So magic has helped me to find empowerment in my life. It helps me to decolonize. It helps me to separate from myself from the indoctrination that is been buried deeply within my skin. It helps me heal. It helps me to heal the, you know, the deep ancestral wounds that I carry from being an African and with native blood in this country displaced. So it helps me to heal those negative things that have happened and the negative symptoms that come about because of that. Magic helps me to feel in control. It helps me to feel in control of my destiny. It helps me to feel like, and it also helps me to make sense of my past. I'm a survivor of child rape and child molestation and a lot of really ugly things and a lot of like abuse that happened. So this was, you know, certain manifestations of magic helped me to heal that, helped me to, you know, marry those things with therapy and other different
modern
things,
modalities.
Exactly. To bring about healing for myself and others. It helps me make money. Like, it's definitely like I give readings and spiritual counsel, so those things help pay my bills and help me to, you know, heal others and help others and facilitate growth and help me to be a vessel. So it helps to bring money into me and helps my household run. So it's kind of like it's the essence. It touches
everything, like you were saying before.
everything. Yeah.
Would you say there's any negatives to having chosen a magical path in your life?
Probably just others and how intimidating I can be for others who are not as free in their mind state. That's probably the hardest part of this, is that, you know, people who don't understand and who aren't really, and you know, who aren't comfortable with it, like their reactions to me. But magic also helps me keep them at bay. So, you know, anytime I have to deal with that face to face, there's always a lesson that I need to learn, or there's always something that I need to do inside of that. But that's probably the hardest thing. You know, it does alienate, you know, me. I didn't grow up like this. You know, I was raised as a Jehovah Witness for the most part.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
That's a big part of my upbringing. So I didn't grow up Afrocentric at all. I definitely grew up connected to blackness and like my culture in that capacity, because my family comes from the South, but we weren't like pro-black. We weren't like, you know, into the healing aspects of it or any of that. So I didn't grow up connected to this, but I did grow up connected to my magic. Like, I would see spirits manifest. People would ask me for advice or direction. Like, I would be really young and adults would ask me these like really thought-provoking or deep questions, expecting that I had the answer. And I guess I had the answer. I can't ever remember what I said, but those kinds of things kept happening. So, these, you know, who I am always was showing up. I just didn't grow up in an environment that, you know, was supportive of that at all.
So how'd you get into it then? I know that's always a hard question.
It is, but it actually kind of it's something that it always gravitated towards me. You know, the deeper I get into who I am and the more I discover it, the more I discover these aspects of me have always been there and shown up. So I would randomly get a hold of books. Even though we were Jehovah Witnesses, you know, when I was growing up with my father, we weren't really good Jehovah Witnesses. So I had access to like cable and other things and wasn't really supervised. And I also learned to read a big part of this is actually I learned to read at 3. I asked my father to teach me to read at 3, and he did. And from there, like, I kind of was in control of my education and my influence, and no one was regulating that. Like, I was the biggest reader in the house until my stepmother came along. But even then, like, you know, no one was, watching what the fuck I was. They were like, oh, it's books. It's like nothing is harmful in books. And meanwhile, I'm reading erotica, medical journals, like satanic shit.
Well, I think
the Apocrypha. Like, I was all over the place finding, you know, mythology.
You're finding spells.
I was doing that. And so that's probably where that, you know, came from. And then from once those things were implanted in my mind, like the older I got, the more they would just gravitate towards me, or I would see movies or just, you know, or I would hear things in movies and like I would remember names. Like, I know that name is important, but I remember hearing the names Oshun and Yemeya in Love Jones, and I remember having a physical reaction to those names and having no idea had no point of reference for those names at all. But
but felt a draw.
I had a real draw, and something said, always remember remember these two. Like, and then I ended up, 10 years later, not even 10 years later, but getting involved in Ifa and being connected to Santeria and understanding that I'm a child of Oshun and how close Yemeya's relationship. So these elements have always kind of shown up in my life, and I just kind of let them, and when I was at my house, I kind of did it as undercover as I could until I was on my own at 18 doing my thing.
Yeah.
So.
But like you said, it seems like magic isn't something that you seek and find. Perhaps it's something that finds you. Mm-hmm. Yes, and you can sort of be listening and catch on to what comes your way, or you can sort of brush it off and consider it coincidence of certain kind.
If I may, it's not very often that you meet people who are open and honest about being abused as a child. So I always like to ask, was your abuser abused, if you know that? And do you think there was a magic component to that too? Because you see a lot of, I don't know, in my research, it seems that magical people tend to be abused way more than non-magical people. And that often seems to be like it's a magical ritual abuse thing that you interestingly find a connection, which is why I always like to ask. I mean, if you're gonna be, I don't know, I guess if you're gonna be a person who other people can come to with advice, you're supposed to have experienced a bunch of things. You have to come to the table with real answers. So
and
that's how the universe seems to work. But
so I had my physical abuse was by my father, and he was abused by his older brothers, and so he did not sexually abuse me at all, but it was the abuse I experienced from him was pretty horrific. Like I was stripped naked on a regular basis and beaten with like 2x4s and like tied up, like it's slavery shit. And so my father, in one of my poems I speak to this, but my father. And I want to make it clear to anybody listening that your abuse is not your fault. If you are a victim, like your abuse is not your fault. You are a victim. I am not at fault for any of the abuse that I went through. I did not call that to me as a child. That's not my fault. So we're clear because we're about to get into some deep shit. So my father, definitely the abuse that took place within us is post-traumatic slavery disorder, and an acting out of that. My father came from the South and grew up in a time where he saw people still lynched. He grew up where like you did not whistle at a white woman, you were still killed. Like there's still places in Texas where if you're caught there after sundown, and if you're black, if you're white and heavily tattooed, if you are not hillbilly regular ass white Texas, you will get killed and no one will come looking for you. So he grew up with that, and in that blood, in that soil, there's our pain. So I'm super clear in my healing that he was acting out ancestral shit, but also like Southern discipline is no fucking joke. Black people now beat our children because of slavery. When we look at where we come from in indigenous places, we don't come from spaces or tribes where we beat our kids. Black people don't do this. We don't beat our children. We do this because of slavery. People of color do this to our children because of slavery. So in my healing, I'm super clear that that's it. Also, I'm super clear that like the abuse that was handed down from my grandmother and them was no joke. Two, with that, my dad was left alone with his older brother who was really, really, really abusive. And this like helped to turn my dad into a psychopath. I want to say that too, that mentally my dad is not. He does take pleasure in the hurting of people. He does like enjoy hurting people. But I also recognize these things as being a part of his thing. My sexual abusers, the young man who molested me and raped me as a child it was my babysitter's brother, and he definitely had a mental illness. I suspect it was some type of retardation or some type of slowness. I don't think he ever the family knew what was up though. And I kind of was like left, I was kind of the sacrificial lamb in some capacities. Like as long as he was doing it to me, he wasn't terrorizing the neighborhood. And so I kind of got set up in that capacity, and they just kind of let it happen. And that dude was mental, because it wasn't just like child rape. I was like introduced to BDSM and a lot of things like from 5. Like that dude was into some other things as well as that. So I recognize there that he probably had been neglected and abused in some capacity too. And also there was like mental health shit that was very real. Because I could even tell that being little. And there was, before he would molest me, there was always this like, keep the kids away, like, and I could tell that. Like he just operated a little bit differently than everybody else. So
yeah, children are intuitive.
How old was he?
He was like 14. He was between like 14 and 15.
I'm just curious, like, I wonder where he's getting his information, you know? Like, where do you figure out that tying people up is a thing that you can do? You know, was he tied up? Was he watching videos that were
It's a
left
cycle.
in the VHS tapes
Yeah,
or something? You know?
it's a complete cycle. So, I'm at the point where in my healing where I can recognize. And also, I want to say this: like, it ain't your duty to forgive your abusers. It's not.
Yeah.
So if you are out here and you're in a space of straight up hate for the people who like molested you and fucked you up, right on you. First off, like, feel all your feelings, and if you ain't in a space of forgiveness for those, we're in this culture where like we like to coddle things a lot of times, and it, you know, forgiveness does give you a release, but you can't get to forgiveness unless you feel all your feelings and unless you go through your whole cycle, and you cannot feel guilty about that. I hated every single one of my abusers for a very long time while I was in the cycle of healing, and it took a long time. Like, it took a long time of in-depth healing to not only unravel my own pain, but simultaneously I was unraveling my ancestral pain alongside of that. So it's okay to like hate your abuser. It's okay to not fuck with your abuser. It's okay to feel no empathy towards your abuser. It's fucking okay if that's the fuck where you feel, because you need to feel that. You need to feel whatever you feel on your journey to get to a space of healing, to get to a space of release. And I am at a space of release with my abusers. I am at a space of forgiveness with my abusers, and I also recognize that I'm at a space of forgiveness for who I am now. You know, I think we forget about when healing, as you become a different person, you'll need to revisit, you know, these energies and heal them from that perspective. So I haven't had a biological child yet, and I understand that I will have to revisit all these things I've healed from if I have a biological child, and because that's going to change my chemistry. I will be a mother at that point, and I will be a biological mother. I'm a mother right now, but I don't mother any kids that are mine. But I know that that'll switch who I am, and that'll be something else that I'll have to address this healing from. So,
well, let me provide a reflection that perhaps part of the reason that it's so important to feel all of your feelings is that it's a way of practicing self-forgiveness, right? I forgive myself for being angry. I forgive myself for being, and so I'm going to let myself feel whatever I want. And then once you've practiced internally the true art of forgiving yourself for these variety of emotions, then it's easier, it's almost second nature to reflect that forgiveness upon others, right? So it may not be that you need to forgive your abusers or anyone who's hurt you, but to first forgive yourself increases your capacity for forgiveness. Then handing that out is easy because your cup overfloweth, right? But if you haven't done that inside, and then you think the thing you're supposed to do is forgive someone without having reckoned
doing
that
the work.
inside,
do the work.
it's not possible.
It's absolutely not possible. You know, I think about when that young white kid, Dylan Roof, when he went into that church and he worshiped with these black people, and then he killed them in their place of worship after being prayed over by them. And immediately the knee-jerk response from a lot of the spiritual leaders in the black community was, oh, we forgive this boy. And I very publicly was like, I don't forgive him, and that's not actually okay. That knee-jerk response is coming from a survival, we are outnumbered, black folks get killed by white people in this country. That came from a very post-traumatic slavery disorder, because that's evil as fuck. And you don't immediately forgive someone who goes into someone's place of worship. Eventually we can get there, but like not 24 hours. Like, that shit is absolutely horrific, and we didn't even get to feel the horror of all of that before we started touting words like forgiveness, you know. So, and I think that's a thing that's in this country. Like, you know, black people, we never really healed. Native people never really healed. You know, America is hella young.
I would say white people
White people never heal. Well, I was talking to my homegirl about this the other day, is that white people there's this white fear, because white folks came to this country in fear. And like, so this is why white people are scared of everything right the fuck now. Because there was no rest. That y'all came to this country, migrated, was dying. You came from a situation where like you was getting kicked out and killed and everything. You went on the fucking road and on the ocean and a bunch of motherfuckers died because it wasn't the greatest situation. You come to some foreign land and then a bunch of motherfuckers die because you don't know what's going on. Like, there's been
trauma.
fear. That's a lot of trauma. one, the people who are already here die because you came here and the hygiene practices are different and you come in here, trying to rule shit. Like, no one here stopped to address anything.
Right.
And that's why, like, we are in the turmoil that we are in this country because we've literally been going a couple 100 years, 700 years, 800 years.
Sort of caught in the same cycle.
And, like, at some point, that's got to purge itself.
Yeah.
At some point, we've got to throw up on ourselves. Like, we've been eating everyone in this space has been eating fucked up shit. And it's got to trickle down. And we have to start on this level of healing. So that, to kind of turn it back to magic, that's, like, I feel like the main reason why, like, I have been placed in the position to be public about how I live my life, because I do believe we have to do that in order to get right in this country. We have to Sankofa. We have to go back and fetch it. We have to go get our stories. We have to
dig deep,
dig into our pain. We have to acknowledge it. We have to sit in it, stand in it, acknowledge the abuse, acknowledge where we are abusers, acknowledge where we have been abused, acknowledge all that blood, like all that's in me. Like, I definitely represent as a Black woman, but, like, I have some strong white ancestors in me. I've got some strong Native ancestors in me, and it's up to me to kind of bring that all together and to like bring that mixture together and fight for what the fuck is right and for our healing and things. So,
well, I appreciate you doing that, and it's a hard stance to take because people they have all of these knee-jerk reactions from all of this trauma. And if you look at, like, basic, I don't know how you politically identify, if you do at all, but if you look at, like, a basic, someone who really identifies as Democrat and someone who really identifies as Republican, and you see them just talk about anything, it's really like watching two abuse victims constantly trigger the shit out of each other. And that word trigger, I think, is a great metaphor for how traumatized everybody is.
Yeah, literally.
Because everyone's just reacting emotionally to all the shit that's happening. There hasn't been a space established to say, all right, what is it that's triggering us? Why? Let's dig into that, with the goal being letting that go, transmuting that energy, becoming more whole. And
because it makes money if you are not, it makes a whole bunch of people a lot of money if we operate in a society that doesn't center healing. It makes a whole bunch of people a lot of money if we operate in a space that does. When we think about indigenous life, or where we all come from, your whole life kind of supports your healing. Like, there's a science, so, like, now, like, if you garden, you'll feel better. Well, like, because, like, the earth, hands in the dirt. Well, you gotta think about, our ancestors did that because that's what the fuck you had to do to live. So, like, everything from gardening was our therapy. Making this pottery was not only just an artistic space where we can express our art, but this pot will actually, I will use to cook, or I will sell, or I will support my family. Like, all of it, like, our healing, our magic was intertwined in everything.
In being human and who we were.
Being human, the magic in the cooking. That's what everybody has soul food. It's literally, everybody has soul food. Like, Black people, because of our trauma, we're the ones that, like, spotlighted the fact that it does save your life. But every culture has soul food.
Well, just look at how people connect to culture. The first thing people want to connect to is their food.
You want to eat, and that's the first potions. That's the first
first magic.
The first magic,
Alchemy,
like the first alchemy, is like how to turn a plant into something edible, how to turn an animal into something edible, like,
and heal you through the process of participating in the cycle. That's, I think, the key. That the life-death cycle, the trauma healing cycle, is something you have to participate in entirely.
Yeah,
the
and,
whole
like,
thing.
even we think about indigenous, when we would kill animals, like, we were very connected to the life and death aspect, so you just treat it better, and we were also connected to our animalistic, urges and things. So we honored that space. I think in this society we honor. That's why I like magic and ritual and ceremony, because it can get quite primal, and it reminds you that that's exactly what we are, and that we lose our humanity in civilization if we do not remember our primal self and don't honor our primal self, that instinctual self. And some of those urges are hella base, like killing things. We're animals. We like to kill things. If we place it in a container and respect life, there's a cycle. Then, like, you kill the animal because you need to eat, but it also satisfies an animalistic urge in you.
Inside.
But your, our civility, our, higher self can step in and say, hey, let's offer a prayer to steward this energy forward, so, like, it's not just wasteful. And then let's use everything about this animal. But then we've also participated in making sure the herd herd is thinned out enough, and making sure that doesn't overrun. Like,
because it's an ecosystem, it all works together a certain way. And if you don't participate in, it used to be that if you, let's say something really simple, like you farm too many buffalo, the herds would die, and so you had no more buffalo. So it was very obvious if you weren't participating in the cycle in a way that was sustainable, you could say.
Yeah.
But now we're totally disconnected.
Yeah,
You can't
and
eat
like
too many cheeseburgers so the cheeseburger herd goes away. You know, the McDonald's is there for you no matter
Yep.
how much you participate in it.
Yep.
So we're sort of disconnected from the cycle. So here's an interesting question. This might be a little leading, but I want to address some of the myths around magic. Because I think some of them are really awesome and exist in, like you said before, movies and books for a good reason. They sort of are permeating in the subconscious. But there are some other ones that I want to address too. So first is black magic. What is black magic, and do you think that magic itself can be evil or have evil incarnations, or why that myth exists?
I think that when you are, especially when we are connected with our indigenous explanations of power and things, there's no like good and evil. There's shades and there is paths. There are definitely paths of practicing that are on the shadow level, that, you know, access different spirits or entities or deities that, you know, operate on very shadow tendencies, that have maybe not good intentions. I do think that exists, and there are practitioners who facilitate that, like the president of the United States, the current president of the United States, every president of the United States.
Well, I'd say anyone
there's
who
magic
takes,
and everything.
anyone who takes advantage of fear magic is maybe a form of black magic.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I think there's shades of it. So I think there are definitely, there's ways that it's productive and it's fertile magic, and then there's death magic. Like magic doesn't recognize, like power doesn't recognize itself as anything other than power. It just has these elements that are attached to it, that are you know, and that are connected to it, that you could grasp onto and use to manipulate it, or completely, you know, let go of.
Yeah, that's a really interesting phenomenon to me. All right, so you've got black magic. What about like sexual magic? That's something that a lot of folks think about.
Oh yeah, the first time, and what do you do when you colonize the people? You take away their God, because everybody on this planet, in regards to spirituality, their God looks like them. So the first thing you do when you colonize people is take away their God. You also take away their connection to their dance, and you take away their connection to their bodies and their sexuality. And you do that because there's power in those things. If a person sees their reflection in the Most High, then they can recognize themselves as divine, and they know that their position of being oppressed is a wrong one.
Right, but if that idol doesn't look like them, then they're going to assume that they're not divine.
Exactly. And also with sexual, you know, sexuality and sex magic, it is healing. So as a survivor, there's like the Kama Sutra and all of that. That's sex magic. Pillow books, all of that. That's involved in sex magic. But So there's death magic and fertility magic. And as a survivor of child rape and child molestation and rape as a young woman, that's a lot of sex death magic. Being raped takes something from you. Being molested, it strips something. It strips everything from you. And it takes a long time to recover from that. And sometimes some of us don't get to rebuild and come back to ourselves from that. So I healing that. I definitely went to therapy, and I used my art to heal, and I healed on all of these different levels. But there was the moment that I knew sex magic was real, outside of like these books that I studied and all this, the alchemy of sex. So I had a homeboy who was a lover, and we were booty calls and lovers and all that kind of stuff. But we were good friends, and he had wanted to be with me, but I recognized that I was very sick, and I just was in that position, but I could fuck him. And so, can't be a girlfriend, but I could fuck the shit out of you. So that's what we did. And so, I feel bad. We should have got married. But anyway, I called him up one night. I was drunk as fuck. Shouldn't have been drunk and driving, but I appreciate the fact that I did that night. The ancestors took care of me. But I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, I called him. I was like, can I come over? And, you know, let's fuck. And he's like, yeah, come on.
Booty call status.
Booty call. So I come through, and we're about to get down. And as a survivor, this thing that would happen to me, I know a lot of other survivors experience this, but my body would shut down. So I would have these moments during sex where I would be completely present, you know, psychologically, mentally,
having a good time.
But then, like, I wouldn't even register what triggered me, but my body would shut down. Like literally, like my vagina would close up, dry up. It would be crazy. And like, I would still be there physically. I would like mentally and emotionally, but I would just be gone, you know, physically. So that happened with him, and I knew what was up. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. So I'm sorry. Like, this is just a thing that happens. Like, so we're probably not gonna have sex for the rest of the night. Like, sorry about that. Like, but I'll suck your dick though, because like it totally like like came over here, and you should get a nut if I can't. And like, he was super calm, and he just kind of looked at me. And this is a hood dude. This dude would gang bang, do all this kind of shit. But he was so also educated. I love these dudes. He was a studier of like tantric sex and like martial arts. So he just had this duality, like pistol whipping motherfuckers, doing all kinds of dirty shit, selling drugs, and then like so enlightened at the same time and educated. But so he kind of just like was patient with me, and he kind of stared, and he was like, and I was drunk enough and we were friends enough that I let me ramble on, and he was like, where did you go? What happened right now? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this just happens from time to time. And he's like, no, like, let's talk about it. Like, yeah, he held space. And I was like, well, this is what happens. Like, you know, I'm a survivor. This happens from time to, and I never had a lover who did that. So I'm like, this happens from time to time. My body shuts down, blah, blah, blah. So I go through it, and he's like, well, let's, you know, he looks at me in the eye, and he's like, I'm not these guys that hurt you. Do you see me? And I'm like, yeah, of course I see you. But he kept like bringing me to the present, because I was hella still triggered, obviously. Yeah. So he looks at me, and he's like, I feel like we should continue to have sex. And he was like, this is not about an orgasm. He was like, but I feel like if you don't have sex now, you're not going to have sex in like a couple years.
So it was a form of him saying, this is something I see you not confronting.
Yeah. And so I'm going to help you. And it was spot on, because I wouldn't have confronted. I would have stayed away from sex for like 2 years. And so I was safe enough to be like, okay, like, and also he was learned enough. Like he could do fire breathing. He had gotten his sexuality to the point where he could, you know, have an orgasm without ejaculation. So I trusted that, like, we could go for as long as I wanted to. And it was not, what he said was true. Like, it was not about a nut. Like, it was all about me. And so, we ended up going on that night, and it was fine, and it was good. And ended up processing the next couple of weeks what had happened. But on a cellular level, in that moment, and what had been happening was that my cells that were, that were developed and damaged every time I was molested and raped, were active. So you get a new body every 10 years, but if you don't heal those cells, you keep recreating those damaged cells.
Same cells, yeah.
So I was recreating those damaged cells from the time I was 5. And so that still was physically in my body. So anytime I would have sex, not anytime, but sometimes I would have sex, and someone would trigger me physically. But because I was so disconnected from my body, I couldn't even tell what they did to like shut my shit down. And I was also disconnected. Like, I would still be present mentally and emotionally, but not there physically. And so those cells were awake, and in that moment we were able to write a new story while those cells were active and like pulsating and triggered. In that same moment, in a safe space, we took that energy and we wrote a new story, and we laid it on top of those cells, which gave me like a new cell to start building, you know, as your body is recreating cells.
A new book to write a new story.
A new book to write a new story. But also energetically, he took the time to name what I was going through, and kind of be like, I'm not any of these guys, and I'm recognizing that men took from you, and in this moment I'm gonna give back in the name of this, like in the name of these men, in the name of your abusers. Like, I'm gonna carry the mantle of what they did and like give you
And
God.
rather than take, I'm going to give.
I'm going to give you back. Yeah. And like, I've never had that. My body's never shut down. That was a level of moving into my body I didn't realize that I needed. I also didn't recognize that I needed a masculine energy to give that back to me, since it was masculine energy that had taken so much from me. And like, that was like, I also realized that on that moment that a lot of survivors don't do their healing on a physical level and on a cellular level, that we attack it on the mental level, the emotional level, we attack it on all these other bodies, the spiritual body, but we neglect to really heal it on there. So sex magic, if that's the really practical application, when I really put it together, I was like, that shit is real, because I couldn't have gotten through that level without it. I needed that in a sexual capacity. I needed to be traumatized. I needed all those elements. And in the end, like, ultimately what happened was we did ritual.
Right.
Like, that's literally was informal ritual. And from that was the moment that I then began really and truly incorporating ritual and ceremony into my sexuality and, like, really marrying it because I literally felt it heal me.
Yeah, well, because it can. So let's really quickly take that metaphor and transcribe it into how you can use that sense of magic in another scenario. So let's say, like, you're having a conversation with someone that's about race or economics or something like that. Let's use economics just to make it clear for everybody. And you say, well, you know, some people don't grow up with the same access to things, and someone gets really triggered. Let's say it's somebody who's well off, and they think, no, let's say their story is they didn't work hard enough, and so on and so forth. How can you be what that guy was for you in that moment, for anybody who gets triggered in those conversations? How can you hold that space and say, I'm recognizing what is happening right now is a moment of trauma. How do you go about holding that for someone else?
Recognizing where they're at first and foremost. Like, it's a kind of a rule about lifeguarding is if you're a lifeguard and and someone's in danger and you can go get them and, like, not be in the exact same danger they are, thereby making two people who need help.
Right, yeah.
Go do it. But if you can't do that, don't do it. Number one, I think sometimes is assessing where someone is at, because sometimes they're ready to heal. Sometimes you're part of them just breaking. Sometimes you're not going to break through to them. You're not going to get through to them.
Just cracking.
You're just going to crack, And so you got to save yourself. If it's a moment where you're just cracking, you just don't go in. No matter how deep you want to go in, you just don't go in.
They'll drown you with them.
They will drown you completely with them. But if they're in a moment where they're ready to break, the biggest thing that you can do for anybody is seeing their humanity. And if they're ready to break it, then there will be a moment where they can see your humanity, and that's where you start.
That's a middle ground.
That's where you start. And we live in a place where we don't see each other's humanity. And, like, that's so simple and so big. We don't see each other's humanity. I can't watch fake violence on TV without, like, really cringing and, like, relating that to, I've been through trauma myself. I have friends who've been through all kind of trauma, friends who've come from war-torn countries. So even though I like action movies, there's also a part of me that's like, oh yeah, my homegirl actually ran from bombs. That's not cool.
Live through this shit.
Yeah, like, so there's a space where, like, I still try to see us as human and, like, and see each other. But we don't live in that society. So, like, if they're at a place of breaking, or if they're, then go establish humanity. Even, like, I used to be a self-defense teacher, and one of the things that people who are preying on you aren't looking at your humanity. People don't pick their victims because of anything that's based off you just fit a story. You're an object. So one of the things in self-defense was, like, make yourself human. Like, if you're kidnapped or something, be like, oh, my grandmother is expecting me, like, my mom, I'm gonna call my mom, like, my baby's really gonna miss me.
So the
like,
first defense is humanize yourself.
Humanize yourself. Like, so then they can be, there's a space where they can begin to see you. If they can begin to see you, you can either fight back, or there's going to be a place of relaxing there where they flip the script and you can do what you need to do. So the same thing in that kind of situation is establishing humanity, because in those conversations, a lot of times we're just looking for power and control, and, like, we're not being human with each other.
Not trying to find that middle ground.
Exactly. So if you can get, with anybody, get them, if you can get them to a space of humanity, you got something. You got something, because I've had heated conversations with people, but as long as we could see each other's humanity, as long as you know that, like, my passion is because I'm human and I feel greatly about this,
and that we all feel that passion and all want to feel greatly about things in that way.
Exactly. And, like, I can reckon we could be on opposing sides and, like, and walk away good,
hella respect each other,
and walk away learned as well, because if I can see your humanity, then I can acknowledge that there's something for you to teach me, even if I don't agree with your whole point. there's something for you to teach me, there's something for me to learn, and like we can grow together as that.
So you can totally disagree, but still learn so much together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we don't exist in human relationships right now. It's a lot of like disconnect. It's a lot of this, like our social media. We see each other in a very two-dimensional capacity. So it's
the Black Mirror.
Yeah, and so we don't really see the fullest. I like using this magic though to be real. That I do like. I don't share like all of my embarrassing moments, but I also don't shy away from fuck shit and letting it be known. Being like, yeah, I did that. So hey, but I'm human.
Well, kind of like tying that in, I wanted to touch on word magic because my favorite thing is, the words that people choose to use. And my big breakthrough in my life was, it actually was based on a cartoon that was magic based. And there was actually one episode about a girl kind of like self-cursing, Triple X Holic.
Okay.
It's just it's a really dope anime. I think it's only like 3 seasons.
Yeah.
It's all magic based. But there's one episode about a girl who's basically like cursed, and all of her words have more power than the average person. And the main character guy, who is just being introduced to the whole world of magic, he can see literally the manifestations of her words coming back. But I was just kind of learning this idea of the words that people use and the effect and the ripples they put out and bounce back to them and stuff. And I started paying very clear attention to like the actual words that people were saying, because people will come to you and they'll talk about whatever, and they think that they're saying something and they think that they're giving you some basic impression. But if you stop and you slow down and you're looking at exactly the words they use, you find that they are living their truth. Like invariably, I've noticed that everyone I've ever met lives their truth.
Yeah.
And the difference between what they think they are and what they actually are is laid bare in their words.
Their spells.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
And since your lady speech, I wanted you to kind of touch on word magic.
No, it's super true. It'll govern your life. Like I spoke life into myself, and I spoke life into myself. Like, literally, that's it. I think about, like, I'm only here. There's this quote that's like, we are the prayers of our ancestors. Like, literally, in the thick of slavery, 150 years deep when we were deep into it. There's no end in sight. And, like, my ancestors who were choosing to stay alive every single day and, like, making a choice to stay alive and keep going literally spoke into, it won't always be like this. We will be free. We will be free. We will be free. Not even knowing how that's going to happen. Not understanding that your kids ain't going to be free. So, number one, like, I think about that a lot lately. And, like, speaking my kids' future into being. There's a native, in some native tribes, like, you take care of the earth. It's 7 generations back. It's 7 generations forward. So speaking the earth forward, speaking, things forward is the spell. But I could definitely attest to, words having power and words being spells and speaking yourself into something. I'm a big person about not being self-deprecating. If you're a person, if we're all healing, so I'm about it. If you want to talk about where you're fucking up in life, like, let's do it. Like, I have conversations with people all the time. Like, I'm totally dropping the ball in this aspect. I'm not doing this. This is where I need to improve. But I don't tolerate anybody that's like, I'm a fucking bitch, or I'm so fat, or I'm ugly, I'm a disgrace.
I think that you could say that there are spells and then there are curses.
Yeah.
And cursing yourself is not really the greatest thing. And it's funny how even when we say, like, cursing, right, like, fuck, bitch, like that it carries a certain harmonic resonance. Yeah. And it affects reality.
It does. So then, like, you think about how that plays and how language plays into colonization, and how, like, there's words when you think about our indigenous past, and there's not a lot of words for, like, hate or, like, evil or even things like that. So then those kinds of things don't exist in those societies
because they didn't create those spells.
They don't create those spells. So even things like criminal, like, there's no such thing as criminal. So because there's no such thing as criminal, there's no need for jail, because there's literally not a manifestation for that. Like, you create a word, then you walk yourself right into something. So from the moment I started saying, like, things like the Black woman is God, I'm worthy, I'm beautiful, beautiful. Like I spoke myself out of depression. I spoke myself out. And of course there was other things I used to heal and things of that nature, but it literally started with the words that I say. It literally started with how I speak to myself.
Hell yeah.
And how I speak to other, people. I do this thing called Operation Public Bathroom Affirmation, and it literally is just me with dry erase markers writing on like bathroom mirrors affirmations and quotes and challenging things that make people think. And it's because like I noticed that people are in the bathroom, especially women are conditioned to be in the bathroom like, oh my god, I'm so fat. I'm like, you're doing your makeup and you're saying all this fucked up shit about yourself. I'm like, that's not cool. Like you're reinforcing all these negative constructs into yourself. So
and literally in a reflection. Literally bouncing it back to yourself.
Bouncing it.
Yeah.
So
like, these spells can interrupt people's train of thought.
That's exactly what it is. Or even make them think about something. Like, I like being in hella white spaces and writing, like, trans lives matter. Like, black is beautiful. Because, like, that's something to be like, wait a minute, I don't ever think about black being beautiful. Yeah, you don't. And just interrupting that space. Like, black is beautiful. Like, maybe making you think about the next time you use black in a derogatory, capacity, or disconnecting some things. So, yeah, word magic is where it's at, and a lot of that keeps us oppressed a lot. Though that's a part of it. Like if you don't speak good things into yourself, if you don't speak good things into your community, then like you're not going to grow into anything. Being a product of abuse, most of my problems and most of my negative self-talk came from directly what the negative abusive forces around me were saying. Yeah. So directly from my father, society, you're too dark, you're too fat, you're too black is ugly. From my father, you're worthless, you're not. That tape that I played in my head dictated my life for a long time, and the quality of life that I led wasn't great. Like it wasn't until and there's not a lot of difference in money. It's not like I'm super rich right now, but the quality of life is so much better because I speak better things into my life. And also because I speak better things, people speak better things to me. I don't get a lot of harassment. There's not a lot of things that I deal with that aren't direct lessons. Like I used to receive a lot of energy of like even street harassment, but now the mantle that I drape myself in every day is of affirmation, so that attracts a lot of affirmation.
So you get affirmations back. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. I think that reality is a kind of a mirror, and the way that you participate is going to be what you get back. Just like when you look into a mirror, what you get back is what who you think is looking. Yeah. So spells are a great reflection. Spelling words are a great reflection for who's casting them and how they end up being who you are in a certain way. I see so many people that are caught in those sort of spells. What's your advice for people who are out there who have this part of them that's like, oh no, I'm too much this or I'm too much that? And for instance, one common one I see, and this is really ironic, is maybe the most unattractive thing you can do as a partner is think you're unattractive. Right? So that's one example of a self-manifestation in those spells. So what would be your advice to folks who are trapped in those cycles, trapped in those places of cursing themselves? You have to
design a campaign, and you have to recognize that it is a campaign. There are thousands of different campaigns being aimed at you every minute, every hour, every second.
That's right.
To get you off course. So that's number one. And then
enchanting.
Yeah. So you then have to recognize where your biggest influence is. Like, so for me, I recognize in beginning to disrupt those spells coming at me, I had to recognize what I was responding to. Right. And what I really recognize about myself is I'm a visual person. So that means I cannot watch TV on a regular basis, and I cannot look at mainstream magazines on a regular basis.
Without being affected by that stuff.
Yeah. And so I don't watch regular TV. Because I looked at it and I was like, commercials really fuck me up. And then I looked at the study of commercials and how they do how
they're purposefully supposed to fuck you up.
Exactly. And even how those advertisements, at the height of my body dysmorphic disorder, I was my worst when I was buying Cosmo and Glamour and all those magazines. And when I put that shit together, and I did a little experiment, I gave myself 6 months of not looking at those magazines, which was kind of hard back in the day for me. And then I went 6 months back into it, and my behavior was way more destructive. My thought process was out of control. When I had access to regular television, my thought process was out of control. And it wasn't the things that I was was watching, because I chose good content, it literally was the advertisements.
Yeah, it was in between the
It
commercials.
literally was the advertisements. So like now, like I do watch TV at other people's house because I don't have access to it that much.
Yeah.
I have my Netflix or my Hulu and stuff like that. So I'll flip through a magazine every once in a while, and like if I'm looking for something or if it seems intriguing or things of that nature. But that I knew that's part of my personal campaign to keep me on the up and up.
Yeah.
So like part of my campaign, I've been writing affirmations on my own mirrors for years. So that's a part of my campaign. Telling people in my circle, you are not allowed to be self-deprecating, and it's a hard, fast rule. Like,
So when you see
new
somebody
people,
else doing something that you used to do,
it's a
you
hard,
say,
fast
no.
rule to be like, you can't do that, because I also recognize it's easy for me to get on a track and be like, oh my God, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid. And so because I recognize that I'm not bigger than this, and I just submit to it and do what I can to like it works out better. So having to like you have to design a campaign. You have to recognize that it makes a whole bunch of people a whole lot of money for us to be disconnected. So it's nothing personal, but also you got to recognize the power of what they do. Like it's working. So
they do a great job.
They do a great job. So you got to do a great job, and you have to like value your health. You have to value your mental health. You have to value it and want quality of life more than wanting to be sick anymore. But yeah, designing a campaign, that's the biggest thing, is like you can't just be like, I'm gonna be better about this. Like you have
to choose steps.
Yeah, and recognizing what's at work. You like even a simple thing of like weight loss. So like there's a lot of people who I struggled with body dysmorphic disorder and like weight fluctuation for a very long time, but like recognizing I knew intellectually what I needed to do to be healthy. So like that, I needed to break down all of the things that made me not healthy, which were that has nothing to do with food. I had to look at my colonization. I had to look at like the history of like survivors and how we protect ourselves and like all that stuff. So like a lot of times it's the breaking down of what's been done to you and the flushing that out will help you move forward and eradicate these destructive behaviors.
In a way, I would consider that a kind of integrating darkness. Like if you can recognize like, wow, I do feel really bad when I talk shit to myself, then part of what you're doing is recognizing the power you have, although you're using it negatively. You think eventually, I think it clicks for you like, oh God, what if I spoke positively to myself? How different that would be. And then if you want to get really meta, you can ask like, who the fuck is saying all this stuff?
Yep.
And who am I saying it to? Like if it's really just me in here and I'm just my mind, then isn't this sort of useless? And then you start realizing, oh, maybe not. It has an impact on me.
To go back to advertisements and enchanting, I think it's really important for people to understand that, or the people are unconscious of, and that's how they're surrendering their power, is that you have all of these sources that are saying very repetitious things to you all the time, and if you're not saying that many things in counter and opposition to them, you are losing the battle.
Yeah, you're getting bombarded all the time.
Yeah,
that's all ritual and ceremony is repetition,
All the
repetition,
time.
repetition. And you build a highway that you can walk on. The more you do it, the easier it is to access. That's the same thing.
Just like if you want to be in shape and it takes a lot of sit-ups and push-ups and hard work and everything, repetition and practice, you have to be in your own head, repetition, practice of countering all of those negative narratives, no matter where they came from. And people are like, oh, it's so hard, and they don't want to believe that it's true. But
that's
all
one
of the
example
people, 100% of the time, who have made major positive changes in their life have come directly from their ability to counter the negative narratives in their brain. Like, realizing I have the power to change my own mind.
That's everything. Well, we don't have that much time left. Thank you for sitting down with us, Lady Speech, and you, Sampson. I've learned a lot, and I hope our audience got some insight into some things. And I want to point out from the course of this context, if you were listening to this and you felt certain things at certain times, that those are really, really phenomenal road markers, and that those are places to look at who you are and why certain things bother you or don't. And that's, in a way, that's taking your power back. Rather than just being triggered, oh, that thing bothers me, now I'm going to react to it. Instead, look at why that's bothering you.
Resonance and dissonance.
There you go, resonance and dissonance.
Pay attention to those things.
To the harmonic fluctuations of your life. Well,
that's right.
In the last little bit, I want to get right to doing something ironic that we just talked a lot of shit about advertising, but advertise yourself. Tell us all. Where can people find you?
I have a website, so ladyspeech.com. That's where you can keep up with like my shows and different things of that nature, my art, my YouTube and all that. I am on all the social media, so you can find me on YouTube as Lady Speech, Tumblr as Lady Speech Sankofa. Enter my Tumblr at your own risk because it's political and very erotic.
Sexual.
It gets sexual as the fuck. I have a good time over there. It gets nasty. I love it. So I'm on Tumblr, Instagram as Lady Speech. I have an artist page on Facebook as Lady Speech. I have I will be participating in the National Poetry Slam that's coming up in Denver this week.
What day is that? That's like this weekend, isn't it?
It's this week, yeah. So like the 8th through the 11th it's like basically this Tuesday through like this Sunday. So you can go to the nationalpoetryslam.com. It's really easy to find. It's all over Denver, Colorado, all over everybody's Facebook in Colorado.
Is that the DCPA, right?
Yes, it is. So I will be managing a couple venues, but then I'll also be co-hosting the late night erotic burlesque venue. So that's going to be good.
Nice.
And on the 15th, I have a show at the Lincoln Street Station, the Dear Lola Rose Show. It's my friend Ave Grimm. It's his first headline show, and it's all about honoring women. So he invited a bunch of us to come perform and just to be honored by him. So it's good. So,
beautiful. I hear you're writing a book, right?
I am writing a book. I have my first book is written. I have 3 books that are coming down the pipeline. So I'm known as kind of a motivational person. So I have a Monday motivational book to help you make every Monday your motherfucking bitch.
Nice.
All right. So
you better pimp out your Monday.
That. Got you a book for that. And then this book started as a joke, but then it's kind of funny to me. But a book of dirty prayers.
Ooh,
We talk about spiritual prayers. So this is kind of like a tongue-in-cheek book about like dirty prayers, about like when you got to pay bills, but you late, but you need your check to like not for them to push it through.
No, yeah, that's important. Yeah, you have to ask for help in the times when
exactly.
you think you need it.
Then there's like prayers for like I'm about to fuck this dude. Hopefully this dick is good. Or please let her pussy be on point. Like so that's that book, and then I have the third book that'll come out in that series is a poetry book, a short poetry book. It's gonna have 9 pieces, but there'll be an audio project associated with that. So
gotcha.
There will be it's 9 poems, and then those same 9 poems are gonna be on an album. So yeah. So those are the things that are coming down the line very soon. So, yeah, look at the website, ladyspeech.com, for all the updates and things.
Beautiful. Well, we're not totally over, but I'm going to plug a couple of things before we leave. Don't forget, Meet in the Street is still happening. You can find all kinds of wonderful creatives and artists down in the 16th Street Mall for 3 more weekends.
Man, that's fun as fuck, guys. I went down there. It's super fun. You should get on that.
Yeah. Lady Speech came down during one of the first weekends, and we had the Botanic Gardens bus.
So cool.
Which is on the Botanic Gardens block, so come check us out. Also, we're doing a Japantown event this week on Thursday and a Culture in the Square event on Friday. So if any of this talk about ritual and magic has piqued your interest, come on down on Friday because we're going to be doing a great job.
Oh, I forgot to talk about the body altar. So
that's important.
The 4th Saturday of the month, Tia Timi and Auntie Speech, we throw a ritualistic ceremonial dance party. Drop it like it's hot for Ganesha, twerk it for Jesus, percolate for Jehovah.
Nice.
But it is a space where we get together, we do some community healing. It's an intergenerational dance party. So like our baby guru is like 1.5. And like she helps leads us, and then we've had grandmas who show up. Everybody shows up. So we build a community altar. We bring plant-based food. We have a free community store. So bring new or gently used items to give away. I've gotten like some really good. I got a good purse, some good Santa. I got all kind of good shit. So it's a fun time. So it's the 4th Saturday of every month. We have a page on Facebook. You can like that page. We were at Urban Sanctuary, but we're going to be changing that venue. So you guys just like the page, or you look at Muse and Medicine, which is Tia Timi's YouTube, and look up Muse and Medicine on Facebook because you can get updates about Body Altar there, or you can get them through my page, Lady Speech, as well, or the Body Altar page itself.
Yes, if you're somebody who's afraid of dancing, I really encourage you to go. I'm one of those people, and I've been to a couple. There are actually a couple of those spaces now. I should shout them out.
You're afraid of dancing?
Really? You didn't know that?
No.
Of course I am.
Jeez.
Dancing is fucking scary.
Stage performers
It's scary.
Dancing.
Well, yeah. Talking is easy. Talking takes no effort. But like everyone has really comfortable modes of expression and really uncomfortable modes. And for me, dancing is one that's like, and honestly, I know it's just that right now I look really stupid doing it, but that's okay. I've like gotten over that. And now I just get into it. I don't give a fuck how I look. And
Hell yeah.
And part of it's because I go to spaces like this. So if you're somebody who's like that, go.
Yeah.
This is a place where people are going to love on you no matter how you look.
Yeah, because it's not about how you look. You can do whatever you want. Like, you can come looking how you want. You can come being weird. It's so great. Like, we've had hood folks show up, like, straight up gang members, straight up, like, baby gurus, like, grandmas. Everybody's welcome, so.
Yeah, crip walking, whatever it is.
Oh, my
you wanna
God.
do.
It's, to some house
I gotta
music.
teach myself that one. I love it.
Crip walking?
Yeah.
I guess.
I love
Either
it.
way, it's been a fun episode. Sampson, thank you for being here with us.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, Lady Speech, thank you for being here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Illfoominati. I'm your host, Ryan Fu, interviewing cool local creatives like Speech. And we're going to be here for a while. Is this episode 11? 10? 11. Ooh, diggity. And we are not stopping anytime soon. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the We Are Denver podcast. I hope you're having a good day, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Big up to Rich in the control room.
Yeah, big up to the
Harry at
Ghost House Studio.
Ghost House Studios. Shit is
Rich,
cool
Miles, Nick G, everyone who's helped put this stuff together.
Yeah.
Love and peace. I hope you guys have a good day. Check us out.